Introduce myself. My name is David Bush. I am a librarian here at the wonderful Mott Branch Library. Welcome you all for coming this evening. I have the pleasure of introducing a guy that I met not so long ago, maybe 15 minutes ago. And I'm pretty sure most of you know him, but let me do a little sharing. One of Toledo, Ohio's biggest fans carries a camera these days. His name is Doug Hinebaugh. After over a decade away in other cities learning why only Toledo can be called home, Doug has returned and has brought his colorful take on the world around us. Along with him, specializing in event, commercial, and street digital photography. Dougie Fresh, as he's known by his friends and family, and increasingly to the city of Toledo, is making his mark, but helping his city put its best foot forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to all of you, Mr. Doug Hinebaugh. Let's give him a hand. You folks have a wonderful program, okay?
Thank you.
You bet.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you everybody for being here. This, as you may have heard, is my first public speaking event ever, so it's also my first PowerPoint event ever. I had never used the program before. I got a little crash course last weekend from a photography professor over at Rogers High School, and he gave me about an hour and a half of his time and said, "That's what I got for you, good luck." So I actually am kind of impressed. We'll see how it goes, but thank you all for coming here. I really do appreciate it. It's kind of amazing for me to even be up here, because I look out just in this crowd and see people that I consider more accomplished than me, that have, you know, a lot of the things that I value out of people in society, you know, people that are active, people that are doing something that makes a difference. Everything, you know, about it isn't selfish to them, that they're trying to give back, you know, a good portion too. And that's who I am and how I try to be, and the type of people that I want to surround myself with. So when I see everybody that's here, like, I'm really blown away. So I didn't know who would show up, and I'm very impressed. So thanks a lot for being here. I am going to talk tonight about a couple of things. One, about myself and who I am. I'm going to talk about my journey away from Toledo and coming back to it. And we're going to dive into my photography a little bit. I'm going to focus mostly on street stuff, but we're going to finish up with some event stuff, and finally get to show off a little of my Gwen Stefani stuff, as you can see up there. Destination Toledo, they finally started posting some of these things. I took some photos at Fan Fest for them, a lot of them actually, and we kind of made an agreement that they had some special things to do with these. We're going to help show off what downtown Toledo is capable of, what the space can actually be used for when people give it the A+ treatment that the Soul Line Cup brought to it. And to get to be invited to do that job, just I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, because it seems so above my head, but I look back now and I did it, and I did it well. And after doing Jeep Fest earlier this summer, you know, this is who I am and what I'm going to be doing. So, but my name is Doug Hinebaugh. I am a 44-year-old man. I was born and raised in this area. I spent my first 7 years in Point Place. My parents wanted us to be able to go to some better schools in Washington local, so they moved us out to Perrysburg Township, and that's where I lived through 19. I went to Bowling Green for a year, and Owens Community College for a year and a half, and University of Toledo for a year, and I was not good at school. Not that I wasn't intelligent, I just didn't really care that much. I'm a social being, and I did not know how to use that to my advantage back then. I kind of was all over the place and didn't really have anything that interested me. So I just kind of bopped around and drank and partied, and that was the beginning of the end. And a lot of people knew me from Toledo back in the day because of my networking skills, which I still have now, even though I use them more positively. But throwing small parties, bar nights, after hours, after the clubs, things like that. I mean, I was more infamous than I was famous, and while it was fun at the time, I look back on it now, and it seems like a lot of wasted, unproductive time to me. And that's something that's important for me to remedy, because after 20 years of a progressively worse alcohol habit, it really came to a head for me when I was living in Houston, and my own dad was in the Cherry Street Mission here in Toledo. And if anybody's seen me do some work for Cherry Street Mission, that's how I got involved with them, by reaching out to them and saying, hey, we got a little bit of a connection, even though this one was pretty hard for me to deal with. And I knew that in 26 years, because that's how much older my dad is than me, that if I even lived that long, I was going to be in the same spot. That my drinking, it wasn't fun anymore. It wasn't productive. I wasn't getting anywhere, and I had to make a choice. And so I did. And May 9th this year was 5 years since I had a drop of alcohol. There is no looking back. There's no what ifs. That's who I am for the rest of my life, and my life has gotten nothing but better as a result of that. I'm very happy that I found that strength that my own dad, still can't find, and I wish the same for him. But for me, it was do or die time, and I made a choice. So thankfully, it's gotten me to start to allow me to branch out and find out who I am and what does interest me and what does matter, and that's kind of led me to you guys. Thank you very much for the Toledo Lucas County Public Library for bringing me out today, and the Toledo Creatives. A lot of you may have found out about this through one of those two groups. The library, obviously, I've been going to since I was a little kid, and branches all over Lucas County, and they've meant so much to me at different points in my life. Whether it was checking out books as a kid, my mom was real big on reading. She tells the story often of my dad laughing at her back in the day because she was reading to us while she was pregnant with us. And she was insistent that this was all going to lead to her kids were going to be reading by the time they got to kindergarten. And it worked out. So reading has been something that's been important for my whole life, and even though it's kind of changed in a digital world where I don't check out books per se as much anymore, I always held a little bit of a penchant for that, and I'll get to that in a minute. Toledo Creatives, though, they were kind of a fallback for me when ISO 419, which was the photo group that I was a part of before COVID hit. That group was starting to take off and do what I thought they were going to do, what Toledo Creatives has done. And they didn't really come back from COVID. It's kind of funny there's a library tie, but when all that news first started coming out that places were going to start closing down and things were going to start changing, ISO 419 had a meeting planned at one of the library branches, and I had heard about this stuff, and I reached out to them and said, hey, I want to look into this before, and sure enough, it got canceled. So I had found a lot of value just in a very short period of time from having a photo group, but they were very strictly photography. So when later that summer things started to open up with the Toledo Creatives, and issue 17 was going to go through with the metro parks, well, we didn't know that at the time, but I had been kind of enlisted to help out and spread the word and get people on board for, issue 17 was something that I believed in, that was going to, provide all the funds to do the expansion down along the Maumee River for the Glass City Metro Park, International Park, and some of the things that they have going around there that are going to help tie the neighborhood in and hopefully bring the rest of the Toledo back up to the level that downtown has gotten over the last 20 years. So I went out to North, which is off Airport Highway, and I couldn't tell you exactly what all they do there besides some design stuff, but I got some stickers and met Mark and Ellen over there, and we just kind of kicked it off right then, and I started coming to some events, and the rest has been history. This whole group, I look at the people that are in there, and I tell people all the time, it's not about what age you are when we're all together. It's about what we're doing, what we're creating, what matters to us, what we're passionate about. And I feel that kind of transcends a lot of the things that you would have in a typical age-restricted group. Which, being 44, there's a few of them that I'm not a part of or allowed to be because of my age, but I accept that. But Toledo Creatives doesn't put me in that box, and for that I'm truly grateful. And just getting to know these people and look at their work and what they do and how professional some of the level is, it gives me something to strive to that, I haven't been doing this that long. So I can only, I don't know what I don't know, and being able to find that out from people that I can relate to has really helped me kind of skip a lot of steps and get a little bit further than most people would 3.5 years into owning a camera. So I was born here, like I said, and in 2007 I was getting kind of down on Toledo. Toledo was not where it was at for me. I felt like it was a lot of the same stuff over and over again. My problem, didn't know it at the time. I felt like a lot of things in Toledo weren't changing and weren't coming along. They weren't. And I really got down on the city and kind of figured anywhere was going to be better than Toledo, and I'm going to go there. My mom and sister had already lived in Charlottesville, Virginia for a couple of years, and I said, well, I know some people down there, let me give that a try. Any place was not better than Toledo, and I found that off right off the bat. So it took me 4 years to get out of there and make my way to Chicago. I had a good 4 years in Chicago as far as having fun, but that fun came at a cost, and I physically started to change as a result of the drinking. It started making me more lethargic, not as much of an outgoing person, and since other than printing I wasn't really good at anything, that really kind of stole one of the only qualities that was still able to kind of shine through the haze that I was walking around in. And I was not able to make it work with what I did, and after 4 years there, and you can see a little 4-year thing going on here, but it wasn't meant to be like that, I moved down to Houston, Texas. And Texas did a whole lot of things for me as far as showing me that I liked the big city. I liked being around people. I just felt that Chicago was a little too constricted for me, and there was no place to get any elbow room. There was, unless you had a car, which you're still going to be stuck in traffic, you're going to be on public transportation. You can't just have a quiet day on the way home from work. It's going to take you a bus and a train and an hour and a whole bunch of people, and it was too much for me. And it took me a while to admit that. So it seemed kind of strange moving to Houston if you look at the numbers, but when you get down there, I saw that you can have the big city, but also have a little bit of elbow room and some space to move out. I didn't do anything productive with that. First year and a half that I was there, I got a job right away. I've been in printing for most of my life, and I didn't explore. I wasn't curious. I stayed in my little neighborhood and got to a point where, what am I even doing here? And that's when my dad, I found out about him being in, the homeless shelter, and things started to change for me. And that's when I put an end to that. I have a dog that some of you may have met before. Her name's Elsa, and she's the closest thing I've ever had to a kid. So I wasn't doing right by her. So you add that onto that with the lack of success. No matter where I went, I seemed to be there, and I was my problem. So I stopped that, and I haven't looked back. I think my mom and sister were both very concerned about me, that I would fall back into a lot of my old patterns. And it was 3 years ago this Christmas, they said, well, we're starting to see something with this photography thing. Let's get him a camera. Not long before that, I had been taking photos with my cell phone at a car show down there that was really close to my house, and it's one of the largest monthly car shows, at least at the time it was in the world. And I was enthusiastic about what I was taking photos of, so even though I was with a cell phone, they were pretty decent enough for the ABC 13 station down there to find them on Reddit and Imager and reach out to me and say, hey, would you be interested in, we'd be interested in putting your photos up on our website. What do you think about that? I said, go for it. Mom and sister saw that and said, we want to keep them on a good path. Let's get them a camera. So they bought me a Sony a6000 crop sensor digital mirrorless camera, and I didn't know what to do with it. I was scared to death of it. I took it on a vacation to Virginia. I drove. It was, I think, 8 states and about 3,600 miles, and I think I took 3 photos. I was scared of the settings. I had taken photography classes in high school, so I used a Canon 81. I know how to, do all the processing, and I rolled my own film and all that stuff. But you put this thing in my hand and just change it around to digital, and I was lost. I was scared. I was still reverted to my cell phone because I could at least count on that one. And that wasn't doing much for me. But after we can get to, I can go to some of my references here, my inspirations. You can see I got the 3 websites up there, but Reddit, Imager, and Instagram did a lot for me in the early days before I moved back to Toledo, because I was pretty self-isolated down there in Houston by my own doing, hiding out from the reality that was the disaster of the life I created. And so it was easier to stay inside and just kind of do this stuff online and chat with people. And I started getting challenged by people. I started posting photos that some of them would be good, some of them wouldn't be so good, and it started to motivate me. And I bought a better paper guide for my camera than the manual that comes with it, and I really started reading. I started finding out, what does this mode do? What does this do? And oh wait, I remember that thing about aperture from high school. Or I remember the rule of thirds. All those basic things started to come back, and with what I was reading and what I was holding in my hand, I started being a little less scared of it. And so I started going out, and I'd go to the car shows, and more and more so, my phone would stay in my pocket the whole time. And I still have a love for the cars, even though, the exotic cars, all the crazy ones that I don't know if any of us will ever be able to afford, but that's what I took a lot of photos of, and I don't get to see them as much up here, so that's kind of changed my perspective a little bit. After a year and a half of quitting drinking and really getting, and then getting into the photography thing, I got laid off from a job in Houston, and things just, I couldn't find anything else. And I was looking around, and I thought, hey, you know what, maybe Ohio might not be such a bad place to go back to. Kind of had Columbus in mind, thought maybe even up to Detroit. I wasn't even thinking Toledo, but when I changed my Indeed profile, I just put Ohio on there, no real thing. Metzger Spring here in Toledo reached out to me and said, hey, would you ever consider Toledo? I said, boy, let me tell you guys where I'm from. And so, yeah, that was enough a confidence builder for me to come back here and start over. And at the time, I didn't know what the photography was going to come to, but I knew there was going to be an element to it. I'd been in printing for forever. My dad owned a print shop when I was a little kid. He had started that after Hickory Farms, which you guys all probably know from the malls and stuff. All those sausages and labels and posters and everything that you see in there that got printed, Hickory Farms did that in plant over in Maumee on Dussel Drive. They eventually decided they're going to farm that out, and my dad said, well, I'll buy that. I didn't listen to anything during high school, and everybody that worked for him said, don't get into printing, don't get into printing, don't get into printing. So what does Doug do? I dove right in. I ended up getting kind of trapped in that. For somebody who didn't have courage for a long time, that's all I knew, and that's what I went with. Even when I was in a place like Chicago, even when I was in a place like Houston that had so many more opportunities to branch out, I was scared, and I stayed with what I knew. But those aren't the types of jobs that are conducive to living in a city, working second shift and partying, and none of it worked. I pushed forever. I got really good at what I did. I could walk into any print shop in this world and run just about any machine in that shop. And Jim right up front here worked with me for a year and a half at Metzger's. He can probably attest to that. I was good, and that's okay. That's what I wanted to do with photography, though, is this kept growing. And in April of 2020, about 3 weeks after everybody else first, I thought I was going to skate by and keep my job through COVID, and that didn't happen. They laid me off, and there really wasn't anything else to do. There weren't a whole lot of other jobs out there. Everything was kind of closed down, and I'm not very good at sitting around. So I took that as my cue to, I'm going to get crazy. I'm going to leave printing behind me, and I'm going to give this everything. I can't go in a museum right now. I can't go, to an amusement park, but you can't stop me from going outside. I'm going to go to the parks, and I'm going to go out on the street, these empty streets, and I'm going to do all of this. And that is when all of this inspiration that I had really got unleashed. After moving back to Toledo, I got to add some people that I became friends with onto my list of inspirations, and I finally had some people that weren't just online. You see over there on the left, that's Seth. He works for Hart, and Ben right next to him also works for Hart. These guys are both professionals in graphic design and photography, And the very first speaker event I ever went to for photographer was Ben Morales over at University of Toledo. Since I've been going, those two are both in the Sony world. They have been fantastic resources for me. I can always go to both of them to ask them questions, to find out about gear, to find out about how the business works, about all these things that a lot of people learn by trial and error when they're starting their own business. And like I said, I'm kind of trying to skip some steps. So I'm enlisting help from anybody who is willing to give it to me. Since I've gotten to Toledo also, since I met them, I also met on the bottom right, Dirty Kicks, that's James Dickerson, and right above him taking a photo of Toledo, that's Grant Beachy. Those two were the other photographers that have really made an impact on who I am and what I do in this world of photography. James is the first person I ever paid as an adult to take my photos for my website. I love what he does. I think him and Ben both, with their black and white, really challenged me as somebody who loves to get colorful and bright, to not be afraid of the shadows, and sometimes they're an important part of the scene. Sometimes that's what we're out there doing, is trying to capture the light. And with the light comes the shadows, with the good comes the dark, and you have to embrace that a little bit. So James and Ben have done a lot of that for me, and Grant has kind of been my rock through a lot of things. When things were kind of going really tough for me I was really worried probably last winter that I wasn't going to be able to pull things off in the photography thing. And I took a job with the state of Ohio in January of this year, and because the unemployment was running out, and I wasn't sure what else I was going to do, but I knew I wasn't going to go back to printing, and Grant helped me a lot along behind the scenes while I did that, so that I could help figure out what it is that I wanted to do, what I was good at, and how I could, help propel myself into that. I also, back in April of this past year, did a brand workshop with the woman who designed my website, and she kind of really got me to believe that, like Grant had been telling me, I am as much of my brand as my photography, and that I need to really, put a lot into that. For a lot of people that want to know some of the secrets of what I do, a lot of it is going to be your relationships. You can take great photos. I know all kinds of people that take great photos, but they can't walk up to a stranger on the street and say hi to them and find out, well, what do you do? And, oh, hey, maybe we can do something together. And my networking skills, my affability with people just that I run into, that's kind of been a skill for me that a lot of people that may be way higher up on the photography level than I am, maybe they're losing out on stuff like that. But I know it's for guys. I have been influenced by a lot of women as time's gone on, but for my story and getting my start with this in Toledo, these four gentlemen and those 3 websites, that's where it all came from to start with. Thanks to the creatives, I've been able to branch out to a lot more of that. I would like to talk photography-wise about the street stuff that I do. I'm kind of all over the place. I got a lot of people that when I was first exploring and asking questions on Reddit and photography forums, I got a lot of the same response, and that was people telling me to pick a discipline and get good at that, to focus on that, whether it's, if I wanted to do car photos, get good at car photos, make myself a Mercedes-Benz ad photographer, or pick weddings, go get good at weddings, and you can be the best wedding photographer in your town. And that wasn't enough for me. I don't want to stick to one thing. Like I said, back when I was younger, I was kind of all over the place, but I didn't know how to harness any of that because I didn't have any purpose. Now that I do, and I've got a camera, and I've got skill, and I've got motivation, I'm able to, I was able to say, no, I don't want to do it the prescribed way. I appreciate everybody's advice, but on this one, I don't want to listen to you. I'm going to go ahead and keep taking photos of everything. And as I've done that, I've kind of gotten good across a lot of disciplines. Now, I may not be the best at any one thing, but there's a lot of intangibles that come along with what I do, and I know this because people tell me about it all the time, that a photo, something simple, that they noticed the lawnmower woman up there. That really, really resonated with a lot of people. The guy moving or with the moving truck up there, people thought the 28 grand thing was really clever because, when I posted on Instagram, I posted it with Billy Joel's Moving Out playing at. She said, if that's moving out, or if that's moving up, then I'm moving out. And that's the type of thing that I think of when I see some scenes like this. And so I capture it, and when it resonates with other people and I get messages about it, that's when I know I'm onto something. The guy with the pigeons, I thought that was, I didn't realize how cool it was until I got back from Chicago, but it's just things like that. It's stuff that a lot of people see every day, but for some reason it isn't a clickable moment to them. And I do it, and then everybody says, oh, I should have thought of that too. So I don't think I'm doing anything too special a lot of the time, but sometimes it turns out that I did. Street photography has been something I've really gravitated towards. Like I said, I'm a very sociable person. I like talking. I like just chatting and being around people. So I take a lot of street photography, and that could be from the camera that's sitting on the passenger seat of my car with me almost all the time. If I pull up to a stoplight or something, that's fair game to me. If somebody's right out the window or whatever, when this lawnmower woman, this is across the street from my house. I was coming home one day, and just normal Saturday, and I look over and I see a woman that looks like she just got out of the boardroom over there mowing the lawn. And I went and parked back behind my house, and I thought, you know what? I think I'm gonna do it. I'm just go out there. She may yell at me, she may stop doing what she's doing, but I'm gonna go take a photo. And I went out and did, and I thought it was pretty fantastic. It's something that made me question myself a little bit before I even posted it. Is this just strange because this is a woman? But I thought about it, and if it was a man in a business suit mowing the lawn, I think that would be equally as strange and something you don't see every day. So this one resonated with a lot of people, and I thought it was pretty cool the more I thought about it as well. There's a lot of the elements of my street photography happen to be at nighttime. I love things that glow. When I can have a dark scene, but something as simple as the glow stick guy down by the Mud Hens Park rolling this thing around. A little girl, she was going to get one of those. I mean, if she would have waited a second, he was going to roll the cart over to her. But right there, she had to have it, and she was going to try and reach through there. The guy over at the ATM, I wasn't going for his PIN number or anything like that, but when I saw all of that blue, it just stuck out to me. Being in printing so long, I've always been around colors, and that's kind of how I see and think. And so I see a scene like that, and that's something that speaks to me. These are all things that you guys can find, and you probably see them when you're driving around at night. I don't know what it is that in me that says, I want to go take a picture of that, but when it pops up, I go for it. I was really actually surprised to see the library post this one in their stories and the promotions running up to it. That's a lot of that one generated a lot of interest from people on a lot of sides of it. It brought out a lot of positive and negative, but it's the type of thing that pops up to me that in the moment, I'll be honest with you, I was a little scared. I see these guys coming around the corner off of St. Clair Street, and that thing in me that said, no, I want to go get a photo of this, overrode that thing that said, do you really need to be walking off the sidewalk out there with these guys flying around the street on these, out of control vehicles? And yes, I did. And I went out there and I blasted off about 7 or 8 frames, and a couple of them happened to be kind of interesting. This one wasn't particularly sharp up front. If you look at the guy on the bike in the back, it definitely was. But just that blur effect with a scene that us in Toledo, at least for me, I'm down there almost every day of the week, if not sometimes multiple times a day, but that's not something you see every day, and that kind of sticks out. If you check the one to the right of that, that was what I was just talking about a second ago. I mean, something as simple as I'm just driving down Jefferson, and I say, at a stoplight, and I look over and I'm like, oh, look at his red pants, and look at the red 5, and the red on the Ted's Hamburger Shop. And I just happen to have my camera here. let me see if I roll my window down, if it's gonna make him notice it, and he didn't notice it. So you guys have probably seen some of my photos before. If you look at the bottom, you're gonna see that door ledge in there, you're gonna see the window in there, because I'm doing it while I'm rolling. Yes, you should not be distracted, blah, blah, blah. I'm not trying to do this while I'm rolling, but if I'm at a stoplight and it's right there, it takes no effort to do that. I don't feel like a danger. I'm happy during the question and answer to take my lumps if anybody wants to ditch them. Recently I went to Chicago. I told you I lived there. That place is a street photographer's dream. As much fun as I have there, there's always that little tinge of regret for the time that I spent. That I had cell phone cameras on me, and I was around these types of scenes all the time, but didn't take advantage of it. So for me, whether it's right here in Toledo, or whether it's, Louisiana Avenue in a one main street town drag in Perrysburg, or whether it's in a metropolis like Chicago, there are a lot of elements that I find that are similar that attract my attention. And when it comes all together, with the photos that I bring home from my walks and my trips, I don't know, I think it's something that's become everything of who I am. I can't see myself ever going back to printing or even a regular job. This is just undeniably where I feel I belong. This is the lane that I'm in, and I'm going to keep pursuing it. There's something about being in cities that brings out something in me that gets me livened up. When I was in Chicago a couple weekends ago, I was there for a wedding, and they had the rehearsal dinner, and then we went out for shockingly pizza after the rehearsal dinner. So people wanted to eat some more. I asked to be dropped off near one of the elevated subway lines because I wanted to go take some photos, see if I could get some trails, long exposure stuff of the subways. And we couldn't get out of the West Loop because in Chicago, Mexican Independence Day is like 4th of July everywhere else. That and Puerto Rican Independence Day are two things I didn't even know really existed until I moved there. And I got a little bit of a taste of it when I lived there. What happened a couple weeks ago when I was there, by all accounts, is probably the largest gathering of this type, and this was impromptu. These people shut down the whole South Loop of Chicago to the point where the police blocked off the bridges to keep them from going north and said, try not to break anything. I told my friends, I said, you know what, I don't even know if the subways are going to be running, much less if I'm going to get up to it, so let me out. I'm going to walk and let's see what happens. Yeah, that could have been a dumb idea. Maybe it was, but I ended up, as I kept walking through the crowd and getting closer and closer, over towards Millennium Park and where the thick of the buildings is and the river, Michigan Avenue, all of that, it just kept getting deeper and cars weren't going anywhere, and I ended up having a big advantage being on foot. And everybody there was in a good mood, after, a lot of the stuff we've seen in past years, where some of these things get a little too out of hand and stuff gets destroyed and people get hurt. This ended up, for what it was, being kind of in good spirits, and everybody was pretty decent for the most part. So what seemed to me to be like a giant party out there in one of the biggest, the third largest city in this country, and nobody was stopping it. And all I could do was take pictures. And being in a place like that, the guy on the flag at the museum right there on Michigan Avenue, I mean, that to me that's kind of iconic. That stuck out. That kid actually reached out to me on Instagram. Wasn't worried at all about getting in trouble for it. Said, can I get this photo? Yeah, you can have it. So I emailed it to him, and bam, all him and all his friends are posting it everywhere. And things like this mattered to them. This was a big deal to them. And what started out as just hey, I got nothing better to do, ended up turning into, something amazing that a lot of media people weren't down there. I ended up checking a lot of the news the next morning before I headed out of town, and the Tribune was the only people that had their own first-person reporter down there. Everybody else had borrowed footage or bought footage and things like that. I tried to put myself out there to see if anybody did. Nobody did in the moment. I'm sure it's passed, but we'll see if it comes back around. But I got some stuff that just, again, having my camera on me that's half the battle. A lot of times people don't, or I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have had my camera there, but you didn't. And that's what sets me apart in a lot of ways, because I do. Last thing I'm going to kind of finish up on as we wrap up, come back to Toledo, big events are something that this is the last year, basically. This is something I've always wanted to do. COVID kind of screwed up the idea of events for me, but as they come back around this year, I really dove into them. And I've gotten the opportunity to, shoot some big mega names at concerts, and make some friends with ProMedica, who runs a lot of the stuff that goes on down Promenade Park. And because again, these relationships that I was talking about, that's the things that I'm doing that, let them say, hey, okay, this guy, we like his stuff, and he seems harmless enough, we're going to give him some plastic passes. And that turned into, so much more. And, getting to do Jeep Fest earlier in the summer, that was the wildest thing I ever did in my life, and it took more out of me than I ever would have imagined taking photos would have, but it was amazing to see Toledo come to life like that, and to be responsible for grabbing the photos for something like that, people were counting on me for that. People were counting on me to hit the F-16s flying over, and I did it. And so when Destination Toledo reached out to me and said, hey, Solheim Cup's coming, you wouldn't happen to be available for the Fan Fest, would you? And, what? No, nobody else has called me. I am absolutely available. So I didn't even know until a couple days before that I was going to get to take photos at the Gwen Stefani concert, and it turned out that I did. And you guys haven't got to see many of them. There's a couple of them up there. That was the one I started with, but I had made a deal with Destination Toledo that I was going to hold back on posting. I got a lot. I probably ended up with, over the course of one big day and 3 days of smaller events, probably close to 900 photos. I ended up finishing off around 600, and that's what I turned in, divided up into a lot of different albums. So they've got a bunch of stuff, and a lot of it is really good. I impressed myself in a lot of that, and I got to see a lot of what other people did as well, and my stuff stacks up, and that is really encouraging to me. And it's also, anybody that's probably started a small business has self-doubt, and they're always wondering, am I even doing the right thing? Am I going to be able to sustain this? Am I even on the right track? I always put it that, I have a lot of people in my life that I respect, that I go to for advice. I've got, John back there, I go to for a lot of things. If you guys aren't aware, I provide a lot of photos for Toledo.com. I post all the photos for their Instagram. All of that stuff is me, and that gives me another outlet of things to do in Toledo. But somebody like John Ickes that I really look up to through the art world and through Toledo.com and all of his other efforts, people like him see something in me and think, not only do we want to be affiliated with it, we want him to put his name on it as well, and we want to do something. We want to work with you. And what I guess I was kind of looking for in some of my moments of self-doubt would be somebody like him saying, yeah, I think we're going to be good. We're going to go with somebody else for this. We're going to go with somebody else for that. Or, Doug, you're good at this level, but I think you probably topped out here. I don't have one single person who I respect, who I go to, telling me you've had enough yet. And it's turned into a confidence that I believe in myself now. I believe I can do that. That's pretty sweet. I mean, I'm worried, I don't know if anybody heard, but Gwen Stefani did not give credit to a couple of our local photographers when she used their photos for her promotions. That may come back to bite her in the butt. That's all I'll say about that. So I am a little worried about mine, and we are copywriting these, so we'll be protected. But I have a feeling through Destination Toledo and a couple other even bigger organizations over the next 6 months to a year, you're going to see a lot of the stuff that I produce start popping up everywhere, like the stuff you see already. So it's just, we're going to start getting a little bit wider of a reach here. As a result of that, and the friends that I made doing the Gwen Stefani thing, I was invited to come back for the Chris Young concert the next night. That wasn't even on my schedule. I did that one for fun because I wanted to go see, was that a fluke? Could I do this again? and I can post these ones. So I went and did that just for personal gratification, and I had a ride. I'd never heard of Chris Young until I heard a few of his songs, and I was like, I guess I had, I just didn't know it. Yeah, all of that stuff that we talk about, what it all comes down to for me is since I've come back here, my life has changed. My life has gotten better. Toledo, a lot of people said, well, why would you go back to Toledo? And I'd say, why not? Considering the places that I've been to smaller in Charlottesville, Virginia, and I didn't like that. I've been to bigger, and while I did like a lot of elements of it, it was a little too big for me. It's kind of a Goldilocks situation. And Toledo's, our porch here is just right. This is perfect. This is a place where I can come and I can get my downtown fix, and then 20 minutes later I can be out in the metro parks, out in Oak Openings or something like that. And that's something that you don't get in those bigger cities without having to put in way more work than what you do. Toledo is a fantastic place. I have a great time here. I did it the first time, and the conclusion I came to was Toledo didn't really have the problem. I was the one with the problem. I didn't like myself. I was kind of a boring person, and that was going to go with me wherever I went. So Chicago didn't fix that. Houston didn't fix that. It was me taking myself seriously and finding out who I was and getting the alcohol and the things that were holding me back out of my way so that I could grow. And I knew Toledo would be a place that would allow me to do that. I had a lot of people here that I already knew, a bunch of people that I had yet to meet, among a lot of you, and it was a good decision at the time. And here we are 3 years later, by 2 weeks ago, and I think when 4 years comes around, we're not going to be talking about where my next place is. I'm going to be staying here. So Toledo has given me everything that I've asked for and then some. I can't see myself ever going anywhere else. And a lot of people ask me, where do you get the inspiration? Do you think you're going to run out of this? I think they don't see what I see in Toledo, and they think this has got to come to an end sometime. And I tell them, no, we're just getting started. If you guys knew the shots that I see in my head when I'm driving around town that I just don't have the lens to get yet. I'm building these lists. I've got so many things that I'm going to do. Oh, and each one of those has 4 seasons, and they've got a sunrise and a sunset, and start expounding out. And then as the places change, as the people change, I'm going to keep on having more things to take photos of. And that's what I try to impress on a lot of people when I talk about this stuff is there's nothing that I'm doing that you couldn't do, within reason. That rainbow photo, I bring it up a lot of times. I took that a few months ago. I was out driving around chasing rainbows. I saw storms popping off everywhere, and I said, well, let me see if I can get one somewhere over downtown. The way it was looking, it was pushing to the east side. I was like, well, let me go walk up to the top of the high-level bridge and see what I can get up there. Any one of you up there with a modern cell phone probably could have taken something, within ballpark of what I got right there. But you didn't. And that's what stands out. That's what's different about me. That's what I am there all the time. I am out. That's what Toledo.com wants me to, because they know this is what I do. This is the type of stuff where I'm going to deliver because I am there. I know where it's at, and I'm motivated to keep on doing this stuff. And I'm not bored of Toledo. I hope you guys don't get bored of Toledo. I think there's all kinds of amazing things here that we can all share. And I think a city and its pride are very important. I think it's contagious. I think it's something that builds on. And I think the more people that actually believe in it, the more that are going to give that back, and it will compound. And this could turn into a place that we should all be as proud as I am to call home. We've got, everybody likes to bring up all of our basic wonders and things like that, but if you get around, you can find so many more things that don't make the front pages. And sometimes, like this, you make your own. How many people have taken a photo of the Stegosaurus out in front of the museum? Probably a lot of people, but how many people thought, hey, that'd be really cool to get a globe bike ride and a long exposure? And after some things that I've been screwing around kind of led me to that. That's what Bike Rides Matter 419 helped me set that up. And bam, now I see a whole bunch of people trying to do stuff like that. I get a kick out of it, and that's it. So the things that you guys see on an everyday basis, I maybe see an extra level on it, and I go out and try and make it happen. And when it comes down to it, the things that I like to do are with people, and with this group, the Toledo Creatives, that have, thank you guys very much for bringing me out here. This has been a huge deal for me. Thank you for listening to me ramble on, but you do mean a lot. This whole thing has meant a lot. People say, why do you do that? Why do you hang out with these kids? And look at what I'm doing. This is why. I'm having the time of my life. There's no more second shift, miserable job that I'm going to get laid off from in a year. I've got my own new set of challenges, but I like it. If it looks like I'm having fun out there, it's because I am having fun out there. And I made it this way. I've been through hell, and I put myself there. And then I pulled myself right back out of it, and all the taking that I did from the world before, I'm giving it back now. And I appreciate being recognized for that, and you guys taking time out of your week to come here and let me tell a little bit of my story. We all know who one of my biggest inspirations is, and for everybody who's got to meet Elsa before, I hope you see how special she is. For those of you who haven't, you can ask anybody in here. She's a pretty amazing dog, and she has just really been, she was one of the reasons I quit drinking, and she, for these 7 years in 2 weeks, that she has blessed my life. And so these are many of the things that I'm grateful for. That's basically all I had as far as presentation-wise. That ended up being a lot more slides and longer than I thought I was even going to be able to make it last. So I would like to open the floor up to any questions anybody else might have. And like I said, my Instagram post, it can keep it PG-13 and we're good. So anybody want to know anything about what I do? Zach?
Can you tell us some of your stories about throughout your process from booking a project to the end product of times that you failed, things that have gone wrong that you would want to share?
Yeah, I'm always willing to share my fails. So far I don't have anything huge, but a lot of things that I do have components of failure to them. Even FanFest, which I was just bragging about 15 minutes ago, there was, if you guys remember the shot from the Solheim Cup warm-up event, I don't know if I had it up there, but Imagination Station was out in front of the Glass City Metro Park, and they used hydrogen in these barrels to create a reaction, totally harmless, that shot off a bunch of plastic balls way up into the air. And I caught this amazing photo with Christian Brown from the news in it, in the Fifth Third building in the background, and that's, I think, the highest light post the Metro Parks have ever had. And that was a big deal for me to catch that in that moment. When FanFest came around, they said, well, there's going to be something similar to that going on down in front of the Chop House right there at the base of Water Street. Down there was kind of the entrance. And I knew that was happening. John can attest to it because I was talking to him right after the ceremony. And I said to them, I said, I think I got to get over here to a shot here in a little bit. And I wasn't checking my clock. I was so excited that I just got to see all these, I was standing from me to you guys, from all the top LPGA golfers in the world. I was where the rest of the media wasn't because I dared people to stop me and they didn't. So when you guys see some of the photos that I took, I've got me to Jim right here, Michelle Lee, looking over at me like, who is this guy and why is he here when we have our own photographer? I tripped over the foot of the LPGA photographer and she apologized to me. So, but like I said, I was talking, I wasn't paying attention to my phone. I was, patting myself on the back even though the job wasn't finished because I just did great up there. And I hear that explosion go off and I am 50 feet away from it and my camera's down here. I saw the ball flying up, came around the tree line. You moron. Ran over there to see, do I know anybody here that got it? Thankfully, Dennis Salon was right there, and I even told Destination Toledo. I said they were cool about it. They were in the grand scheme of things, they're big deal. But for me, I took that kind of hard because they brought it up, and I want to deliver. I want if my customer asks me, for the incredible, that's what I want to try and give them. And you know, I've kind of set myself up for this by delivering like this. Some of these live action panoramas that I do that are, you know, 5 or 6 frames that I can sweep across, you know, 1,000 people and put these together, and it works. Like, well, people want these now. So these are things that I have to come up with. Oh, we got a little special guest that wanted to come in and say hi. I said if anybody asks questions about failure, bring in the dog and we'll distract them. Yeah, so there's things like that. I can share one. Like I said, it's not big. You know, I haven't had big failures yet, but I did have a little one. I had a woman, she was 21 years old, and she reached out to me. She had found me on Instagram, and she wanted to do her graduation from the University of Toledo photos. This was a nightmare of a process from start to finish. This woman was back and forth to India. She was moving from Toledo to San Francisco. Kept, oh, well, can we do it this week and that week? Oh, well, can we do it in 2 more weeks? And I hadn't learned to say no yet. And I was charging her $150 for 2 hours. I mean, this was early, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I was, yeah, this can't be that hard. We ended up taking 3 hours, and I ended up delivering an amazing album. I thought they were fantastic. This woman, after she finally got there, after being late so many times and calling off, she finally showed up. She came with props. She came prepared. She was throwing balls and glitter and confetti everywhere, and I'm like, we're going to have a mess to clean up. This is fun. These are going to look cool. And she ended up, when I sent her the album, and I'm waiting not only to get paid, but I'm waiting, you know, for her to say, I love these so much. These are exactly what I asked for. I'm looking at her reference photos that she found sourced from all over and said, can we do this? Let's do it. I'm not that far off. These look really great. And she hated them. She hated all of them. She said, I don't think I can fly back out there, but we will have to set a time where we can go through and I can give you my adjustments for all of these. I said no. I said, you know what? I don't care if this person never comes back to me, and I don't care if she says I was a jerk. I bent over backwards for her to the point where I should have said no way before. And I'm sitting on, I still got them in my Lightroom, probably 120 finished photos and a bunch of them that I'm really proud and would love to put in my portfolio and show off. And that whole thing left such a sour taste in my mouth that I could delete them and I probably would miss them. So there are little things like that, yeah, I'd love to be able to walk away from everything and say they love me. If they're going to do something, they're going to have me back again, and that all went great, and life's all roses. But no, there are times like that. So most of the people I do work with, and I've kind of made it that way, have been nothing but great to me. You know, the Toledo.coms, the Metro Parks, the Destination Toledos, the Arts Commission. They've all been fantastic to me. They've all given me a lot of freedom to do my stuff. I was talking to Laura, she's Braided Arrow, she runs the IGER's Northwest Ohio account. We were texting today, and you know, she said she saw some photos because I'm doing a Metro Parks takeover. I'm not doing much, they've got all my posts, but I'm doing a Metro Parks takeover for social media this week. So on their accounts every day this week will be photos from me. That's my second one of these I've done this year. And she said, as soon as I saw those, she said, I didn't care what account it was, I knew it was your style. And she said, that's really cool that you know, that your style always comes through like that. And we kind of got to talking, and I said, it worries me a little bit though, and it hasn't popped up too much yet, but when's somebody going to come to me that they're going to say, I want you to do this, but I want it to look like this, which is nothing like what you do. Well, as you know, talking to Ben and some of the influences that I brought up earlier, or Seth, or Grant, you know, these people are higher level, you know, they work for, they work for professional management, you know, for professional marketing organizations and stuff, and they have to deliver what the client is asking for. You know, if the client wants a certain theme for a shoot, a certain mood, a certain, you know, we want all of it, that's what you got to deliver, and that's where you're going to have to, you know, decide, do I want to do this and do somebody else's vision, you know, and fulfill that work, or, you know, and so I come across these a lot, you know, in smaller bits, but I haven't had anything where anybody's come to me and just said, it's got to be you, but not the way you do it. So thankfully I've been lucky enough, and a lot of it.
So would you do it?
What's that?
So would you do it?
If I believe in what it is, yes. And that's where that dovetails a little bit off of what I was talking about.
being lucky with who I've been able to work with. I mean, it's funny, I wore this because I was like, I'm going to show off my cool t-shirt, and I saw a bunch of people wearing their Toledo stuff in here tonight too, but when you see what I do and you hear what I talk about, it's authentic and it's genuine. I care about this stuff. I put my name on everything, and I put it on the line. I mean, I have become who I am through a lot of hard work and a lot of pain, and I believe in what I say and I believe in what I do. And I'm not trying to blow sunshine up anybody's butt about Toledo. We've got problems just like any other city, but I've been to a lot of places and I've gotten some perspective. And if you haven't lived anywhere else and you think Toledo's crappy, let me buy you a plane ticket. You know what I mean? I can show you some places. And, you know, I believe in this. And a lot of these organizations that I work with, you know, Toledo.com wants to make Toledo look good. The metro parks, they get funded by our tax dollars. You know, you can vote on this stuff. We had, you know, not everybody was for issue 17 last fall. You know, I think it was a 67% voted yes for it, so that was a solid, you know, 2/3 majority, you know, which 51% would have won it anyway. But there were 33% of Lucas County that didn't want to see their taxes go up a penny for what's going on down there right now. And instead of seeing that and saying, you know, these people are crazy, or, you know, oh, we don't want them to, no, I want them, that I look at, that's 33% of the county that when I take photos for the metro parks, that I want to wow, that I want to bring into the fold, that I want to say, hey, you know what, let me give them a second look. And if something I did help bring attention to that, or good attention to that, you know, when these people see the Glass City Metro Park, I still run into people. That thing's over a year since it's been open, and you could have gone down there, and I still run into people that say, I don't even know what you're talking about. So there's still more to go. So to answer your question, I haven't had to yet, and I will decide that when it comes to it. But if it's somebody that I believe in as well, and I want to help further their mission, yeah, I'll hear them out at least. Because, yes, I want the work. You know, I do this for free all the time, and I did before anybody ever paid me a cent for it. This was all because I love doing it. And this kind of has all built itself. I mean, as far as a lot, I mean, yes, I did a lot of this, and it's become more curated, and I've steered the ship a little bit more, but a lot of this, at the beginning, I was kind of like a pinball. I had momentum, you know, but I was just bouncing off whatever popped up, and, you know, now I'm kind of in a position where, you know, I can kind of steer what I'm doing a little bit, and as long as it keeps coming where I can keep doing work for these same people, and keeps me where I need to be, that's cool, but if it does pop out, I'll consider it. And see, that's a challenge to me too. That's another thing I talked to about Laura. I mean, that's a challenge. I mean, a lot of people talk about getting a block and what they do. It doesn't have to be photography. It can be any, you know, their job or their hobby or anything. They, you know, get in a block. They do the same thing for so long that it just becomes mundane. You know, familiarity breeds contempt. Well, you know, things like that are probably good for me. And maybe I need to be challenged a little bit. Maybe I need somebody to say, maybe not, you know, oh, your stuff stinks and you need to throw it out and start all over again, but hey, we'd really like a darker, less vibrant theme for all of this whole project, or, you know, something. Yeah, I'll consider it, especially if it's, you know, I like what you're doing. Yeah. Anybody else? This is why I didn't bring her in earlier on, because I knew, even if nobody said it, they were all going to have trouble paying attention. So this is Elsa. It was funny, when they invited me to do this, right off the bat, I was like, can I bring Elsa? Because I bring her just about anywhere I can get away with. Well, it brought out this whole thing where they had to look into it, and apparently service dogs are welcome here, but I wouldn't take advantage of that and ruin it for people that actually need them. So I wasn't going to pull that, but they actually want you to have insurance for your dog if you are going to be representing a group or they're the main part of the project. So they said, technically, she's not the Toledo Creatives anything. I said, no, she's my personal dog. And said, and you're just gonna be bringing her in for a portion of it, right? I said, yeah, I can just bring her in towards the end. I don't wanna have her be steal the whole show. And they said, okay, well then, yeah, I guess so. You can go ahead and bring your dog. Yeah, so
This is probably a bad time to mention she is our official mascot.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Now here's what was funny. We parked her, my friend Chrissy gave me a ride up here because my car started acting up on me today. And she's great sitting out in the car, so we left her out there. That red Honda right there that you see, she was sitting in there the whole time. So I thought it was kind of, she pulled up there and I was like, yeah, that's not a bad idea. I was like, I guess I can keep an eye on her. I was like, but I wonder if the lights are gonna come on and she's gonna pop up and be looking around and everybody's gonna, not pay attention to anything I've got to say. So, thankfully it didn't work out like that. I don't know if anybody even noticed her out there.
I was watching her the whole time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I literally didn't hear a word you said. I saw her the entire time. Please do it again.
Yeah. No, so I'm super happy to bring her along. October 15th is her birthday, so she'll be 7. So it's coming up here very soon. I've never actually had a party or anything for her, so I was thinking about maybe doing a little something hoopla related this year, at least setting out some cute pictures. If you've seen a lot of the photos I've had, she will sit down just about anywhere I ask her to for a little bit of time. So I have to respect her chill because it doesn't last very long. But we got a little bit of a deal where you let me get a couple photos when we're out doing some stuff, and I'll go throw the ball for you and make sure that you get a couple milk bones. Or I go out of my way to gas up at Costco because they always give her a bone while we're in liners. We got all kinds of little tit for tats going on. So she puts up with enough of my stuff that I can call her my assistant. Go ahead.
Do you have any dream jobs in Toledo, any gigs that you would love to?
That's a tough one, and I think a lot of people in here that do what I do probably know the value and the joy that you find in kind of making your own schedule of saying, I don't want to work this week. And not having to worry about if you have any vacation days left. I worked my whole life, and I worked these jobs were, they were more, even though I worked second shift. So, for me, being a drinker and a partier and going out to bars and stuff like that, I'm constantly working 3 o'clock to midnight or, things like that. That really cramped my style. But what did I do about it for 20 years? Nothing. I just kept on going. And, I'm just gonna, just one of those disgruntled guys in the back who was good at his job, but you knew he didn't really like being there, and that got worse as time went on. And I knew I had to do something else. When I came back to Toledo, that's one of the big reasons I came back here. I said it, and I told Jim when I first started working there, I want this to be my last printing job ever. That's my goal. And I didn't expect to get laid off due to a worldwide pandemic that's a once in a 100-year occurrence when I said that, but it kind of worked itself out like that. And even though I did waffle on what COVID was still going on, so I'll give that a little bit of credit, but I didn't give myself the chance last winter to stay with what I'd started over the summer. I was still a little scared. I spent a lot of years having that cushion, having that insurance, having that paycheck that gets deposited every Thursday. There is a security, there is something that you take for granted after a while with that. You know that, well, I can pay this bill on this day because this is when I get my paycheck. Now, I put out invoices and some people, take 2 months to pay. I've got a few places that have rates me on, got me on direct deposit and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's kind of hectic. And I could have, $5,000 out on invoice and have $5 in my pocket. And I'm like, oh, so you're broke? How do you want to look at this? So right now, it would have to be something that would have a very varied, spectrum. I've mentioned it before. Some of you may have heard me say it before. If Art Weber is the Metro Parks photographer, he's been with them for 50 years. He started their marketing department. He is visually the Metro Parks, and he's one of my photographic heroes since I've gotten home, since I come back. It's amazing. He's wanted to come out to my stargazing programs that got canceled. We're going to meet, and some people are trying to make that happen, but he is semi-retired right now, and he's down to maybe 20 hours a week. He's got a lackey to carry his stuff around with him, and he goes and takes photos of what he wants, when he wants to, and he's earned the right to do that. He's also earned the right to go when he wants to. I have vocally made it known to the Metro Parks people, I want that job. I'm not dancing on anybody's grave. You take your time, Art. I'm having a good old time out here. Right now, everything's working. I've got no reason to be like, please, bring in part-time. You know what I mean? So I'm okay as long as this keeps rolling. We're gonna go like that. That is one that if I had to say it out loud, yes. And I believe in power of positivity and optimism and making things happen. And I want to put this out in the universe. I want to make this happen. And he's going to retire. This is not me being a dick. This is an eventuality. Like not be like, yeah, come on, Ert, you know, like he's put in his time. He wants to move on. Somebody's going to have to fill that gap.
Yep.
Why not me? And there could be 3 or 4 other people in this room saying the same thing, saying, yeah, Doug, I like that, but your wildlife stuff is kind of weak, or you just don't have a whole lot of it. Okay, but wait. You wait, see what's coming. And I see a lot of value in something like that where the Metro Parks are county-wide. They do, not only just do they, you know, conserve nature and keep parks clean and, you know, have a playground in for the kids, they're throwing events, they're having programs for, you know, for nonprofits, for schools, for, you know, there's a lot that goes on with them. If you guys see, you know, a lot of the stuff that I do, a lot of my private jobs that I don't really get to share a lot of them, but I do a lot of stuff for the Metro Parks where I'm at. At their, you know, their facilities when they have an event, whether it's a corporate event, whether it's, you know, I did a 3-part series with the Ability Center, where the Ability Center was trying to get involved with the Metro Parks, and, you know, on their website they want to say, you know, if they want to reach out to people and get known and say, hey, we've got stuff for you, come programs, this is here for you, so to get awareness out of that. So they wanted to be involved with that, and then the Metro Parks have bent over backwards and spent millions and really thoughtfully and consciously made so many of our park spaces accessible to people no matter what, you know, might be, you know, keeping them from just, you know, enjoying the parks as, say, 20 years ago. So, you know, and it's beyond just handicap spots. This is, you know, down to the height of bricks along, you know, walkways and, you know, a hand railing here that, you know, oh, I wouldn't have thought about that, but, you know, just things like that. So they did a 3-part series where they had tours that came out, and they did one of them at Wildwood, one of them at the Toledo Botanical Gardens, and one of them at Canale Treehouse Village. They asked me to come out and take photos of those for 2 hours, and those are now all been turned into marketing materials and background. And I see, you know, Jim over at Metzger's, that was one of the things when I always thought I got a kick out of it when people started like taking interest in my photos, because I was printing all kinds of stuff for the Arts Commission. I ran the big presses. Like, I was printing all kinds of stuff for the Arts Commission and I was like, well, hey, but they're starting to use my photos. I wonder if I'm ever going to get to print my own stuff. That would be actually kind of cool. And it didn't exactly work out like that, but that's okay. I kind of like my job now. And, yeah, but okay, my slides didn't want to catch up with me. But yeah, the printing thing, you get the idea, the size of some of these things. So a lot of these things are, you know, we're talking as big as a Tarta bus, bigger than that. They're, you know, anywhere from $1 to $5 million, could be even higher if you start tapping some things on. You know, I mean, a lot of people crazily trusted me to run these machines where, you know, you set a wrench on something and where it shouldn't be and it vibrates off and that goes down and bam, you just literally did $200,000 worth of damage and your shop's most productive machine is now down for the next month. Like, that's unbelievable. I didn't do that along the way accidentally, right? But I was actually pretty good at it. So I get a big satisfaction out of seeing things in print because I printed for, you know, a lot of what I did for years was making things that designers and artists created that, you know, they wanted to translate. They may have created it on a canvas. They may have created it in Adobe Illustrator. You know, it looks like something that artist fell in love with that on a screen. And then the person who commissioned it or who bought it from them fell in love with it the way that they saw it. And then they said, okay, let's put it on paper. It never looks, not exactly the same. But that was my job, was to faithfully reproduce that and make them all look good. And if we're printing a 10,000 run, it's not like, okay, well, just make 9,000 of these look like the one on the screen and the other 1,000. No, my job was to make all 10,000 of them look like a faithful reproduction or as close to as we could get of that. So I spent years and years, and when I say I've seen, you know, printed millions of photos, like, maybe that's a little inflated, but I don't think we're that far off. I printed 25 years and tens of millions of sheets went through presses that I was printing on, and it's always somebody else's stuff. So I put a lot of care into that, and now I'm kind of in a position where I'm producing my own stuff, and I try to put the same care into that too. So printing definitely is used in what I do now, although I thought I was completely leaving it behind. Elsa, you all right? She's like, I don't know what to do with myself. She comes over. Anybody else got any questions?
I have another one.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite photo that you've ever taken?
It's funny I didn't put it up there. I really like the one that I took at the Fireflies on the Water exhibit at the museum a couple years ago. I might be able to actually find it and pull it up, and I'm totally sure I don't have anything scary on my browser. So. But this, they had, if you guys, I'm not sure if anybody saw it, but they had an exhibit at the museum where it was by, I think, a Japanese woman, and it was, Christmas light kind of thing hanging out in what they call an infinity room, where it's mirrors on all sides, so it goes on for forever. I had seen photos for months and months where every single person walked in there and did some variation of the exact same thing. And yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. So it was kind of like, this isn't, like Shania Twain, it doesn't impress me much. And I was like, I want to do something a little different than the way everybody else does it. And I have in the past, and for that I used lens balls. And if you're not familiar with that, it's basically a polished crystal ball that you can get some cool images through. And I went there and I held it up in the thing. You only got 30 seconds in there, and yeah, I wasn't even sure what I walked out of there with, and it ended up being just amazing. Of course, I didn't put it on this thing. The teacher guy had me he said, at least 200 photos on a stick, and make them all ones that might come up. So I got 228 on there, not that one. But basically, it was a close-up shot of the lens ball, and then you got the bokeh balls, so all of the lights in the background didn't look like sharp little lights, they looked like these beautiful, soft little orbs. That is probably the first photo that really, I'd have to say, like in Toledo speak, went viral for me. That one was, and because nobody had seen it. I mean, if you were to all pull up your Instagram right now and look up #Fireflies on the Water and go down through the top, there was a point where I was 8 of the top 10. From my photo or another account sharing it, the museum sharing it, it just dominated. Now, there were some that had higher likes. I can't explain how the algorithm works all the time, but they were up there. And so they've gotten spread out down through there now, but I think there's still a few of them out there, probably in the top 20. But I've seen other people do it since, but there was a time there that I could go through that hashtag and just keep looking, and mine was the only one that stuck out like that. And that stuck with me, that really let me see the value in that. I mean, it wasn't the most amazing or technical, but it resonated with people, and that really kind of helped keep me going on this idea of I'm going to do things the way I want to do them and see what happens, and thankfully people keep liking it. I mean, maybe somebody's going to say, here's exactly what we want you to, a trained monkey could do this, but we want your name on it. Or maybe you're going to have to get trained so you're smarter than a monkey so you can do what we're asking you to do. It's still not what you do, but that's what we want. And maybe it'll come to that, but when I get to do what I want to do, sometimes some magic pops up, and that's something I never knew I had in me until I got a camera in my hands.
Wow.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that coming out. There's going to be another one of these with an artist. I think her name is Jennifer Souders. I actually texted somebody. I've got to find a link to her so I can show her some love in November when her thing comes. Chili Rodriguez told me he was going to try and make it tonight. But local muralist, he's a friend of mine, but he'll be doing in December at the downtown library. So these are going to be the first 3 of the public speaker series for the Toledo Creatives. I haven't heard if they are looking to go farther than that, but I hope I did a decent job for the first one and made this worth it enough that you guys might come back out and support the other people when they do, because I know I'll be there. 10 years ago, I would have said, let's go to Doc Watson's tonight. I'm like, let's go home and cook some dinner and stay with our families. Time for Chipotle. Hey, Brian.